Many of you will know that we try to stream these and put these out there on Facebook and on YouTube to no avail a lot of times, but hopefully the microphone system and everything will work tonight. So for those of you who haven't met, my name is Dr. Chad, and this is the Max Living Makeover that approximately 195 offices around the country will be putting on this month in the attempt to try to unshackle people from this, what they think is cancer running in their family, right? Raise your hand if you're somebody who can say that. Certain types of cancer run in your family. Well, I want to start out by pointing out that I'm not here to be your cancer doctor. My job is to empower you to understand the function of the human body, how it works, and what is the environment inside the human body that turns on cancer, that allows it to grow, whether it is from turning off the regulatory genes or turning on the more cancerous type genes, or just the environment that becomes toxic and allows cancer to get started in our bodies. Second thing I want to remind you of is that, I raised my hand too. 3 years ago, lost my aunt to colon cancer. Last year, my mom had diagnosis of cancer and of colon cancer. So I can say that the colon cancer runs in my family because of the emergency situation. She had to go through the surgery to remove the tumor load. And then she chose to do the things that I'm going to talk about tonight, not to go through chemo. And she was like so many people. She had a ton of excuses, right, that she could have utilized to not double down on herself. Number one, giving birth to my older brother, she had an aneurysm in her early 30s. Then later on, had breast cancer. Later on again, doctor thought that they needed to do brain surgery to her because of a headache she was having. They opened her up and instead they stroked her out. She had to learn to walk, to talk. In the process of doing all that, she had to have a shoulder replacement and a knee replacement due to the damage that stroke caused her. She had a ton of excuses. She's 80. So she had I'm old. I don't want to change my ways. All of these things that said she should follow just what was the easy path and what was recommended. And she decided that really she knew in her heart that she couldn't get sicker to get well. And that's what resonated with her. And, I should thank her more and more every day for not only the things that she's taught me and taken care of me so well, but also just her stance, her ability to have faith in herself. And that's one of the things that we want to talk about this evening is that we have to understand that the chiropractor is the perfect person to be bringing this workshop on cancer to you. Because medicine is the study of disease and what causes man to die, while chiropractic is by definition the philosophy, science, and art of things natural. A study of man and our relationship, how the body functions. And then it goes on, it has a colon, and it says a system of adjusting the segments of the spine to remove the cause of dis-ease. Not disease, dis-ease, a very different thing. Going back to that Latin, a lack of ease in the body, which is part of what we're going to talk about, because we want to talk about how not to have cancer run in our families. And this has been going on, 1971, Nixon. I wish this video was not private now. It used to be in 2015 when I made this slide. This was not a private video. And it really goes on. The first minute and 10 seconds describes how it's about the treatment of the symptoms and not really finding the cause. And this is a recording of our own president. But what's happened since 71? That was when the National Cancer Act was passed, and we then saw this new blip, this rise when Beau Biden was diagnosed and died with brain cancer, right? So here we have a picture of President Obama, and this was a speech where he was handing the baton off to then Vice President Joe Biden, empowering him to fight cancer. In that statement about honest evaluations, I feel overwhelmed on how I can meet my responsibilities. That was Joe Biden's statement to that. To being empowered to be the second most powerful man in America, empowered with finding the cure to cancer. He felt overwhelmed. So, I mean, that was 2016. Where are we today? Well, to answer these questions, the 20-year survival rate for cancer is 18% total. 5 years, much more dismal in things like pancreatic and brain cancers and things like that. But why do I bring that up? Because this question that's been on the wall for the last week, what's the fastest growing population of cancer in America? It's pediatrics. So an 18% survival rate of 20 years, if a child is 5 and they get diagnosed with cancer, they're probably not going to see 25. And it's even worse in the fastest growing subset of pediatric cancers, which is the brain cancers. And we're going to talk about why that is and why those are growing at a faster rate. And we have to realize that since 1971, the US government spent $105 billion on research, and that's a 2021 statistic. And then the American Cancer Society, $3.5 billion, that's with a B. And then the countless Susan G. Komens and the different funds that have raised millions of dollars. And yet we still don't have a cure to cancer. So the question is why? I mean, there's 700 different genetic drugs on the market. 700 different genetic drugs. We still don't have a cure. It's because we're going the wrong way. No matter who you read, the lowest estimate of how diet and lifestyle affect your risk of cancer is 70%. The highest is 95%. So somewhere around that 90% mark is where I pulled this statistic from, and 5% of that would take it to 95% is what the diet and lifestyle causes to the genetics to turn on genetic cancer. So that's how you get to that high mark of 95% of cancers. And so when we think about these things, we see this major flaw in what we're being taught, and where all the research is going to find a cure in a pharmaceutical or an oil or a tincture or a supplement or a whatever that's out there to try to find the silver bullet. But we understand that, like, literally, we've spent all this money and we've been doing this for 52 years, and it's the 50% of men and 33% of women will have cancer in their lifetime. So if I spent $1 million on a Ferrari and pulled out of this parking lot to go to Florida, and I went north on 59 instead of south, would I ever get to Florida? Yeah. Oh, yeah, maybe. If I go through the ocean, right? If I go through the ocean. And so now, but what happens if I put the best racing fuel possible in it, and I got an even better Ferrari, and now I was going 200 miles an hour? Am I ever really going to get there? No. We're going there. They would. And the idea, though, is that the whole world is going in the wrong direction. We have to get back to the fact that the cause is the cure. If you understand what's causing something and you remove that cause, the law of cause and effect says you will no longer have the effect, which is cancer. So my job is to empower you to understand the things that are going, because remember, fastest growing population, pediatrics, fastest growing is the brain cancer, and they're not drinking and smoking yet. So we can't go blaming it on that lifestyle, right? We got to know what we're doing to ourselves on a daily basis that's driving that problem. And we know that the surgeries, granted, some, like my mom, she had to have that to reduce the tumor load, to give her the chance to change her lifestyle, to stop it and creating that environment that allowed cancer to grow in her colon. But it's still only dealing with the tumor load. It did not change the environment that allowed that cancer to grow. The chemotherapy is the biggest aha moment that we're going to talk about tonight, because it illuminates one of the greatest flaws in the way that they communicate with us, that lets you know that there's a problem, there's something wrong with the way that they're treating things. The radiation is the next treatment that's available. And again, it deals with the tumor load, but there's a high amount of collateral damage that typically happens with radiation treatment. And therefore, bam, now we've got to heal from the radiation and the cancer and all of these things. And the idea is to never get it. So you have to understand, what cancer really is. And we need to understand that this isn't just the MD or just the chiropractors, just the Max Living doctors that are trying to teach this in the 195 offices around the country. This is an MD, Zach Bush, who has a great website, and it's ZachBushMD.com. I would encourage you to write that down and then end up following this rabbit hole and going and following his research.
Few words strike more fear in the hearts of mankind today than that of cancer. This single condition now is expected to be diagnosed in 1 in 2 males before they die and 1 in 3 women before they die in the developed world. This crisis of health that culminates in this bizarre event where a single cell within the human body loses its complete identity as a part of this greater organism and starts to usurp the relationship and the resources for life itself, such that eventually it would go on to often contribute to the death of its source, the human that it stemmed from. We are desperately in need of changing the dialogue and the understanding of cancer, not just in medical halls, but perhaps more importantly even in our understanding as the public, as to what this condition is and how we can change the greater ecology around us and how we can engage in that ecology, that planet Earth nature, to change the trajectory of the disease when it occurs and the prevention of it in the rest of us. I used to design chemotherapy at the University of Virginia, and when I was locked in that mental paradigm of pharmaceutical management of disease, I can guarantee you that there was no thought process that would have allowed me to stretch beyond the patient at the bedside out into the greater ecosystem to consider possibilities of prevention and treatment that would be outside of that medical bottle.
He said bottle, not model.
So this website is really an opportunity for you to engage with me, to understand my journey. How did I get from my chemotherapy development days to today, where I'm really traveling the world to better understand how you and I interact with everything from the soils in which our food is grown, to the food delivery system itself, to food preparation and the sharing of that among families and cultures, to the way in which our water systems and oceans contribute to our health, all the way to the air that we breathe, the rain that we fall. This is my passion, is to say, this condition never was epidemic in the history of mankind until the last few decades. We don't need to go back to some paleo generation for us to figure out how to live without cancer. Instead, we need to just dial back the clock some.
So as we go, whoa, okay, let's close this out.
So inefficient.
I apologize. Let's see if we can make that. There we go. And so to change this conversation, we have to know what causes health. What are we doing that changes the environment? It boils down to 3 things. You're either causing deficiencies, toxicities, or a loss of control of a certain part of your body that allows the environment of that cell or group of cells to change its cellular physiology to try to deal with the situation. So healthy cells, they require oxygen. They do not have to live off of sugar for fuel. Remember, each and every cell in our body can switch over to ketone bodies, right? So many people have popularized the whole keto diet because when we shift fuel systems, then we find a flaw that is a part of cancer. It needs a proper nerve supply to be unified with this tissue, the organ, and the organ system so that it can work with the entire body. And the healthy cells exist in a slightly alkaline pH. And so as we talk about these things, the idea is that cancer is the body trying to survive. And I know that for some of us, this is hard to digest because the reality is that when we look at things, every person has these normal cells, and then the body will respond through these pathways before it ends up in cancer. And we know them. So the hyperplasia or the callus from altered friction. Bone spurs inside of bones is a natural reaction to altered friction or irritation, a bad environment. So we understand that a colon polyp, if you have a colon polyp, when you go get a colonoscopy, they tell you to come back in maybe 3 years, right? Not to come back in 5 to 10 like they would tell another person. Well, the reason is they know that part of your body has started down this pathway. It's headed towards metaplasia. And metaplasia is like an example we know of as an ulcer. Dysplasia is the diagnosis that women get where there's mixed up tissue even growing. It's been such a bad environment that those cells are now just replicating so fast, they're not even re-replicating the cells that they started out as. So that's the abnormal pap smear. The neoplasm, and then the final stop is cancer. Cancer then is staged 1 through 4, right? And so there's even stages to that final diagnosis. Well, the whole time, your body is trying to fix the environment. Those cells are trying to survive in a toxic environment, a deficient environment, or an environment where those cells are not connected to the rest of that organ. And so cancer cells don't need oxygen for fuel. They rely on sugar. They have an inflammatory environment. They don't need a proper nerve supply. As a matter of fact, they don't even want the nerve supply, the nervous system to know they exist. They want to hide from the nervous system. They want to hide from the immune system because they've now decided that the host organism is so toxic that they are going to survive on their own. And they will utilize the host as long as they can. They will replicate as fast as they can in an attempt to survive them instead of the host. Typically, they have a very high acidic or a highly alkaline environment, depending upon the body part that they start in. Let's see if I can get rid of some of these. The chronic inflammation that happens in that, and right, inflammation is a part of all disease, right? We are all becoming aware of that. We don't need to demonize inflammation. We need to demonize chronic inflammation, which is a response to an environmental change. And so the reality is, as hard as it is, we have to understand that cancer is a survival mechanism. It starts out as the cells trying to survive their environment. They get so out of control that they end up killing the person in which they reside. And one of the things that I want to make you aware of is this is the prevalence of cancer in the darkest orange inside of the United States. Let's take a look at where it's located, kind of right where we are. This is the obesity rates in the United States. They look sort of similar, right? Then you look at a map of where diabetes is the most prevalent in the darkest red. And then you look at the prevalence of heart disease, the darkest red. So yes, this office right now is situated in the buckle of the Bible Belt and unfortunately in the buckle of the disease belt. It is more relevant that this be performed, this workshop in this area of the country than in the rest of the country put together. Because more and more of God's people are dying at a faster rate than they should. And the reality is that it is what we're doing to ourselves. It is the lifestyle that is creating it. So what are the worst habits that we do on a daily basis? There are 5 of them. Here, take a look at the calorie intakes. 1970 versus today, 2021. Over 1,300 extra calories. And I want to tell you something. Those calories are more empty than they were in 1971. So the face of starvation in the United States it's not the kid with the swollen belly and flies in their eyes like we used to see the commercials for and send money to UNICEF. That's not it. The face of starvation is obesity. The person's body is consuming so many calories in an effort to get nutrients. And when the nutrients don't come in, it stores the stuff it can't use as fat and signals hunger. Because it's not getting the vitamins and minerals, the nutrients, perhaps the oxygen. It's not getting what it needs to survive. So it signals, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me. And it will continue to do so until those needs are met. The risk factor of stress, right? I mean, come on. Stress, right? I mean, we all just go, yeah, what do we do about that? Like, it's like, oh, whatever. We're going to talk about that. And because the physical, chemical, and emotional environment that we put our bodies in determines our reality. All of us have probably been to a really nice dinner where the company was really terrible and the stress ruined the meal, right? You're like, dude, this was supposed to be so good. I was so excited about this filet mignon and all this bread. And, you were just about to dig in and then, oh gosh, I got to put up with that guy. And the reality is then literally that great meal is soured by our emotions. And that changed our chemical environment, that changed our physical environment, that changed our perception of our entire world. So we have to deal with stress. We can't just, I'll get to that one later. The sedentary lifestyle is the fact that in 1960, 48% of the population had a moderately physical job. In 2008, it was down to 20%. And after COVID, right, everybody goes home to work. I doubt it's even 20% anymore. And when we look at this, 60% of adults are inactive, 25% completely not active at all. Then we are 5% of the world's population consuming 75% of the world's drugs. 75% of the world's drugs are right here. So let me give you a clue. Where are 75% of the profits made? Just say it. And so the idea is then you have this, to control the beast and to generate the most profits is to keep, unfortunately, our sickness is their profit. If their treatment is the only cure. And if we cannot change the world through these grassroots meetings like everything else, remember the science of yesterday justified different bathrooms for people of color. That was science. Women were too hysterical to vote, right? I mean, like, come on. I mean, listen to the science of the day. Their camels used to be more safe for pregnant women to smoke. That was science. Cancer was not caused by cigarettes for how many years? I mean, right? That was science. They had people standing up on the science of today is going to be laughed at tomorrow. The only thing we can do is get in alignment with the principles of the way God made the world and how our bodies run, our human physiology. And the more that we get in alignment, the better our bodies function and the less disease we create. And so when we look at the fact, I have to touch on this, 10,000 chemicals are used in the processing, preserving, and storage of our food. The average person consumes a whole person worth of food additives every year, 140 to 150 pounds of food additives a year. Those are toxins that your body has to deal with. And so the EPA says that your internal environment of your home is usually 5 to 100 times more toxic than the outside air. So you go in to get away from the pollen and you poison yourself because of the chemicals that we're using to clean our homes. And so the lack of sleep provides this environment that says, hey, now you don't even have the time to heal, the time to regenerate, the time to get rid of the stress. And so the faith that we will create tonight to get ourselves above the fear of cancer running in our families is through the changing the internal ecology. I love comparing the internal environment to our soils and to our environment outside, because we are just as influenced by what we put in us, on us, and what we consume, both physically, chemically, and emotionally. Just like we know in this agricultural area, what you put into your soils determines what kind of plants you can grow, right? Well, what kind of plants do you want to grow inside of you? Do you want to grow health? Do you want to harvest life? Do you want to live to be 100? The idea is that we want to focus on the keys to building an unbreakable immune system. Key number 1 is the cancer-fighting nutrients. We have to get rid of the mentality that says that we live to eat and instead eat to live. If all of us did, you could just do one thing. Try to make your plate look like that every day, right? That many different varied colors, cruciferous vegetables, sweet potato, different things of both color, of content, varying our food with the seasons. But if you want to understand things like from a really big conceptual way, this is a great book, Cruise Ship or Nursing Home. Which one do you want to end up on? Right? Yeah, we laugh, but this is a great book because of the concepts that are in here teach you the choices. Now, if you want the Cliff Notes version of those, we have these quick start guides to nutrition and then a breakdown of the recipe book to support the nutritional choices between the advanced plan, which is a getting rid of all processed food, getting rid of all of the processed carbs and grains, and the only high sugar content that you can have is from berries, lemons, limes, and the old school unsweetened grapefruit. And then that's where the sugar content comes from. Everything else, it's probably 80% plant-based. The rest is grass-fed organic, pasture-raised meats and nuts and seeds. And so when we look at these things, we're always trying to get back to the concept of 80-20 or 90-10. All of us are going to have breakdowns, right? We're all going to live a little. We're all going to have our things. And so the idea is to try to understand and manage those from a perspective that the majority of the time we are in alignment with what's allowing our bodies to heal. The last book that I'll touch base on is this. This is an Align Your Health book that has a larger recipe section that to help support you with ideas of how to cook on this anti-inflammatory diet. The core plan is how we could all live. It allows only healthy grains, things like quinoa and aramuth and kamut and different things, millet, things like that. And then we learn to cook with things like the almond flour and coconut flours and things like this to still be able to have those baked goods that we all want, right? The biggest thing we need to remove is the refined oils, the bad fats from pasture-raised animals and bad oils, things like canola oil, vegetable oil. We want to go to the mono oils, the avocado oil for high temperature cooking. Anything over 350 degrees needs to be avocado oil or it needs to be grapeseed oil. It needs to be coconut oil, depending on how it's refined and processed, but olive oil is your best choice. And those are your low temp, 350 and below. And the idea is that it's not just about just the content of the oil, it's about the omega oil contents. There are things called omega fatty acids, omega 3, 6, and 9. We all the time hear about omega 3, right? Well, there are 3 of them. Essential fatty acids. You have to have all 3 from your nutrition. And just like cholesterol, there is no bad one. They need to be there in balance. LDL and HDL. LDL is not the bad cholesterol. You need it to carry things from your liver and to the body. HDL is the return molecule. So omega 3, 6, and 9 are all essential, and they need to be in a 1-to-1 ratio is our best scenario. But omega 6 has a better shelf life. So they allow it to stay in. They filter out omega 3 and omega 9, or they just go rancid in the processing. And then our bodies get out of balance. The average American is 26-to-1. 26 times the number of omega 6s in their diet is to omega 3 and 9. Grass-fed organic beef it has a higher and better ratio, and it's closer to 1-to-1. It's usually 1 to 4 to 1. And so the problem with bad fats is every single cell of your body is made of a phospholipid, a phospho and a fat center. Every single cell membrane. This bilayer, when you only eat bad fats, your body gets a sticky cell membrane. And the toxins that happen from normal cell metabolism, they start to become toxic. And the cell can't get it out. Because this thing right here is, these are the proteins that work on running and getting things either in or out of cell. One of those things is oxygen. And so when we look at these things, we have to have healthy fats. Otherwise, every single cell in our body is sick. Yes?
So this what you're talking about here.
Yes.
Okay, with the cell membrane,
Mhm.
the way that it is, does this contribute to type 2 diabetes?
It contributes to every type of disease out there. If your cells are sick, it contributes to, I mean, literally everything: cancer, diabetes, heart disease, everything. Because when your cell membranes are sick, too much toxins in, too little oxygen in.
It gets built up and
Mhm.
the insulin kind of bounces off of it.
The insulin insensitivity I'm going to touch on in about 2 slides. So what do? We replace it with cold water. You know, we know the things that we should eat, but we justify the cheeseburger and the fast food, right? I mean, let's be honest. And look, this is and everybody says, well, no, it's my genes. I know that stuff works for them, all these other people, but it was my genes. And so this even shows that changing a 2-week study of changing the omega oil content shut down gene expression in the inflammatory cascade just by improving the omega oil content in these people. Changing their fats in 2 weeks improved things. So I want to do something to enliven us. Let's change our state. Let's everybody put your stuff down in your seats and sit up. I'm starting to see too many saggy eyes. Everybody stand up. Come on. Everybody stand up. I'm going to help you fight cancer right now. Buzz? It's up to you. Let's do it. Everybody. So what we're going to do is we're going to be working on punches. We're going to be trying to go to a 90% output for you. Whatever that 90% is, we're going to be sitting here and we're going to start in 5 seconds. We're going to pretend like we're punching the jaw of the person you don't like, right? In 2, 1, go. As hard as you can. The idea is to get to the 90% of output. Some of you look like you're asleep still. What is happening out there?
Get closer on it.
Yeah, and rest. So that's 20 seconds of high output. This is the idea. We just changed our state. Your brain is more alert with oxygen and laughter. And so our bodies are more alive right now than they were. Everybody have a seat. No. So here you go. Folks, the idea is that we all know sugar's bad, but why? Where's the lie? Where is the thing that we're told? The reality is that 70 to 80% of all blood sugar is meant to be consumed by skeletal muscle. So if you don't use your skeletal muscle every day, you don't have muscle cells that have enough insulin receptors on them and sugar receptors to be able to drive that blood sugar into the muscles. You leave a toxic burden. You end up your heart pushes syrup, sugary syrup instead of water, through the cardiovascular system, creating inflammation, chronic inflammation. And the longer you stay sedentary, the more insensitive your muscles become, and the more dependent your pancreas has to do to create insulin to try to drive those levels in. So here's the biggest thing that I want people to know about sugar and cancer. I have patients, hopefully, who are watching at home who came back to me the other day and they said, "Hey, Doc, I just want to tell you, this person's spouse was going through cancer treatment. And they said, hey, I've been talking to cancer doctors. I just want to let you know, that advanced plan stuff and all those things you talk about, the doctors told us, it doesn't really affect their cancer. And it doesn't really, and I just want to let you know, but they did say that healthier people have better survival rates. So being healthy is okay. And it was like they were letting me know, and I'm like, oh my Lord. Look, folks, every single person, every doctor out there, every commercial, it's a tell you a vision. And it's an advertisement of the thing they're selling, which is a lifestyle that allows you to believe that health comes from the outside in and that you can pharmaceutical your way out of a problem that you lifestyled your way into. But 70 to 90% of all diseases, and cancer included, is caused from diet and lifestyle. So it is a lie. And here's the rub. And this was the thing. They told him, hey, man, this chemotherapy is either going to work or it's not. And who else has had somebody heard that, no, the chemo's either going to work, the radiation's going to work, the surgery's either going to fix it. There's nothing that you can do. Well, the reality is, let's talk about the PET scan. So the PET scan, number one, it can't find a tumor smaller than a marble, about 8 millimeters in diameter. So the average person has had cancer 7 to 14 years prior to it being able to be found on a PET scan or on a CT scan or on blood work, because each cell is microscopic, remember? So there has to be a lot of cells to create a marble that can be found on that PET scan. Number two, how does the PET scan work? Well, the PET scan works. It's a sensor. And what they do is they have the person fasting. They come in and they're laying there. And then they give them an injection or have them drink a radioactive sugar material. So let's step back and talk about cancer again. Remember, it doesn't need oxygen for fuel. What happens in the environment that is either toxic, deficient, or both? Otto Warburg showed that in 1941, I believe it was, that a cell that was denied 60% of its oxygen for a chronic period of time will start down the cascade that we looked at that ends in cancer. So you deny a cell oxygen or some nutrients, it starts down the cascade. When the environment doesn't change, it has to ferment sugar to create energy. So what happens is, in normal cellular metabolism, in all cellular metabolism, even fermenting sugar, the mitochondria are the tiny little engines that produce ATP from either a ketone body mixed with oxygen or sugar mixed with oxygen. At the end, we get 36 ATP, those little chunks of energy. Well, when a cell's denied those things or there's damage to those mitochondria because they have a toxic environment, now the engines don't work right. Cancer is this toxic environment. It switches over to using sugar only. In the fermentation process, lactic acid is the end product, right? Most of us hopefully have exercised enough to get sore, right? You took all the oxygen away from those muscles, they fermented sugar, produced lactic acid, and you experienced the soreness. Well, that on a cellular basis every single day creates an acidic environment that damages those mitochondria. So now the fermentation only produces 4 ATP instead of 36 for every molecule of sugar. So what is a cancer cell that needs a lot of energy going to do? It's going to put a lot of sugar receptors out there on that cell membrane. As a matter of fact, 12 to 16 times the number of sugar receptors on a cancer cell as a normal cell. So now they have the person fasting, they come in, their blood sugar's low, they give them an injection or a sugar radioactive isotope. Then they hope and pray that the only place that lights up like a Christmas tree when they go into the scanner is the original tumor site that they know of. But every single place that lights up is then a spot where the cancer is metastasized to. Then they'll utilize that same thing to monitor whether or not it's growing or shrinking or spreading or whatever, and they do these repeated scans. That's how the PET scan works. But then when you come in for treatment, hey, that diet and lifestyle stuff, it don't work. So you mean to tell me that if I took a person, and I did this for a year with my mom and listening to them beat on her mentally to go through the chemo treatments. And the fact is that if you put a person who has sugar in their veins already and the cancer is getting all the sugar it needs, what does it need the sugar-based chemo? Those chemotherapies are attached to sugar because they know the cancer cells are going to suck it in faster than the rest of the body. They stop the chemo just short of killing the person. And that person's innate intelligence, your inborn soul, that regenerates you, made you from one cell and made the person sitting here today, then tries to save your life by detoxifying you. That's how chemo works. So you mean to tell me that being on a low glycemic index diet and starving the cancer, and then when it's really thirsty and hungry, and then the chemo that's based on that sugar comes in, that it's not going to suck it up even faster? The rest of your body's switched over to using ketone bodies. It's used to it. It's running on a completely different system and doesn't really care about blood sugar anymore. it's working just fine. So what it does is it sets the body up to have less collateral damage because it's running on what it needs. It's producing all the energy it needs. As a matter of fact, it's getting 36 ATP. It doesn't need to ferment the sugar. And what it does is it takes that flaw in cancer and allows it to suck up more of that chemo so there isn't as much left over for the body. But diet and lifestyle doesn't matter. The lie is right in our face. And the lie is part of the indoctrination that either they don't know or they're willing to bet your life to sell their product. And depending on the doctor, I bet it's a different answer every time. And you have to decide what's right for you. I'm not telling you not to have chemo or not to have radiation or not to do whatever. What I am saying is know how it works and then do what resonates with you. But either way, being a healthier person always increases survival rates, right? You know, so like the idea is that our sugar is supposed to come packed around antioxidants like berries, right? I mean, the blueberry Pop-Tart is trying to imitate a blueberry. How about we just eat the blueberry, right? I mean, like the raspberry jam. Raspberry. Like, I don't know how we got away from this, but the reality is that all of these things, they're the flavors and the sugar contents that we wanted. So why don't we just eat them? Instead of giving it to the sugar, because remember, the white powder that's refined from poppy plants that we call cocaine, it's a refined product, right? The product that we get from beets and turn it into white powder sugar, it's kind of the same thing, right? We're concentrating it so that we can get the dose that we want. Let's just be honest with ourselves, folks. Antioxidants should be coming from the good, healthy fats in the fish that we eat, the cruciferous vegetables that are on our plates, the bright colored stuff, the different colors and flavors give us the different antioxidant contents. Turmeric, that everybody's so raving about, is awesome in the fact that it's the curcuminoids that shut down the inflammatory cascade in a similar process that naproxen and ibuprofen utilize the same chemical pathways, except for that curcuminoids do it without the toxic side effects. They don't cause the ulcers in your stomach and lose a teaspoon of blood per pill, which an ibuprofen does. It eats a hole in the lining of your stomach. And so these things work. The vitamin C content should come with the bioflavonoids coming from citrus fruits. So when you go to eat or even to take your vitamin C supplements, eat a little orange with it, for goodness sakes, right? Give your body where it naturally gets these things from. When you go to take vitamin D, it's a fat-soluble vitamin, folks. If you don't have some fat when you take it, you just peed your money away. You have to take certain things at certain times, and they're always done in better combination with the natural products in which we isolated them from. I want you to know something about vitamin D, though. For many of you, you can't read this chart, so I'll talk about it. Right, the federal FDA will tell you that if you have 25 nanograms per deciliter of blood of levels of vitamin D, that's sufficient. The only thing it prevents is rickets, soft bones. But if you can get to that 60 nanograms per deciliter level of vitamin D in your blood, you've decreased breast cancer by 83%, ovarian cancer by 47%, colon cancer by 60%, type 1 diabetes by 69%, all fractures combined by 54% reduction in multiple sclerosis, and kidney cancer by 46%. Concentrations matter. Your knowledge matters. 60 to 90 nanograms per deciliter of vitamin D is the optimum range. And that is the way that we can utilize. Now, remember, it's not the vitamin D that does it. It's what your immune system can do when it's not deficient in vitamin D. The things that we are talking about are in alignment with the fact that our innate intelligence is constantly, and you have to answer this for yourself. I want you to answer this question. Do you believe that your body, whether I use spiritual references, you can use your own. Do you believe that you were created in the image? Do you believe that you were fearfully and wonderfully made? Do you believe that your innate intelligence that made you from one cell and created the human that is sitting here is always trying to do the best it can to save your life and to provide you the best? If you believe that, then you have to know that the flaws come from what we do to it. And that if we improve the physical, chemical, and emotional lives that we are experiencing here on earth, and we give our bodies the building blocks of life, then the vitamin D will allow the immune system to work a certain way. The vitamin C is an antioxidant, and it's regenerated by glutathione. And all of these things interplay to allow our bodies to function at their rate limiting methods, right? Going as good as they can. So the supplement bundles that are 15% off at every workshop, we do a couple of things. Number one, we're giving you a lot of new information. So if you want to implement this in your life, the bundles are 15% off. All the other stuff, the books, the everything else, every supplement is, the rest are 10% off. The daily essentials, why is that a component? Most people do not consume 5 servings of fruit and 5 servings of vegetables a day. So they're deficient in, number one, omega oils, because they're not eating enough good fish and healthy beef. So then the omegas in that daily essential, the multivitamin and mineral, because you're not getting enough green leafy vegetables. We also put a multi-B vitamin in there. There is magnesium, which is another most common deficiencies in America. And then we have the magnesium, the omegas, the multivitamin and mineral, the vitamin D. And so these are all in there to go ahead and plug those gaps, because all disease stems from a deficiency in something that the body needs, changes the environment, we get a disease. A toxicity that we don't, of something we don't need, and then we get a disease, or a loss of control. And then the other things are the curcuminoids and the vitamin C. That is not in the daily essentials. So if you're just starting your supplement journey, you want to plug the gaps first. Get rid of the deficiencies with your daily essentials. And then if you're looking to shut down inflammation in the body, that's that curcumin plus. Or if you're already, many of you are patients and you're already on the daily essentials, then you would add the vitamin C and curcumin. And if you're wanting to just do the basics, that's all of those. Because again, the omega oils plug the gap in the healthy fats so that every cell in your body can have a healthy cell membrane and deal with the deficiencies. Do you feel like I answered your question about sugar well enough? Is that okay?
Well,
Earlier?
I wasn't really asking a question about sugar. I was more asking about the cell membrane.
Okay.
That's what triggered that.
Okay, is that, you feel like you've got that answered?
No, but I'll talk to you later.
Okay. That'll work. We always take time for questions afterwards. So who has a question about either supplements or food?
How old is your Happy Meal?
The Happy Meal is about 7 years old. And you're welcome to eat one. Just a few months ago, we had a little girl eat a fry, and she was just fine. I'm happy to report she didn't even get sick, which lets you know what really is in there. And I don't think it's potato. So the idea. So yes, and then the chicken nuggets are actually only, I think, 1.5 years or 2 years old, but they're still not growing anything. So yeah, it's been about 2 years. Okay, there you go. Thank you. See, I don't have all the answers for him either. So the idea is that we need to be feeding ourselves real healthy food. Then we need to step into the fact that we're all going to become, right? We're all going to come in contact with toxicities from the air we breathe, the stress we intake, the things we put on us and in us. So we have to open up the detox channels. We have to detox our internal environments. 2 things I would touch base on here. Number one, we're about to give you an app here in a few minutes that you'll download. That's to ewg.org. And it talks about being able to look at the toxicity of all of those categories, those 5 categories that are creating the pollution inside of us. But I want you to see this, and then you'll all get a kick out of how old it is.
moms go to great lengths to stay healthy and avoid anything that could possibly affect their unborn child. And that's why we're going to study by the environmental working group are really disturbing tonight.
They tested 10 newborns and it showed that every single child, every single one was born with some 200 dangerous toxins in their blood. Now, our own minister, Gordon County, probably knows about this study.
Yeah, there's actually one out of 3 adults who also take part in the study. According to an independent lab hired by the environmental working group, my blood contained 175 chemicals linked to cancer, 210 chemicals linked to heart disease, and 196 chemicals linked to lung infection. But that's not all. Toxic PCBs that were banned more than 30 years ago are also in my bloodstream. The most disturbing results, though, of this study revealed all 10 infants tested had almost as many chemicals in their blood as the adults. Before they take their first breath, scientists say newborns are being exposed to dangerous chemicals. The proof, according to the environmental working group scientists, is in the umbilical cord blood. We found in the baby's blood an average of 200 more industrial chemicals, food, and pesticides, and then half a million of birth. Tests done on 10 newborn babies in hospitals across the U.S. found contaminants like mercury, pesticides, even fire retardant chemicals used in TVs, mattresses, and computers.
Look at that computer.
Kept on cookware non-stick, fast food wrappers leak-proof, and children's clothing stain-resistant. Environmentalists believe these chemicals play a role in the increase of many health problems, like
I want to focus right here. This was one of the points I wanted to talk to about brain cancers and leukemias and problems here. As you can see, that's an old video, right? I mean, the computer, right? It's from probably the 90s. And that was that long ago, but why isn't that common knowledge? Why isn't that the conversation about why cancer runs in people's families? What's that?
We're not supposed to.
We're not supposed to know.
Why isn't something being done about it?
Why isn't something being done about it?
Money. Why it's not.
Yes, thank you very much. Follow the money, and you will follow the fact that the lobbyists and the most powerful people in all of government are those running the pharmaceutical companies. Look what just happened over the last 3 years, and that's all I'll say. And so what we want to talk about, though, is this right here, brain cancer. So sick fats, bad fats, parents who are pregnant women. So I'm going to give you this whole scenario. It looks like that. Folks, we like to pretend that the blood-brain barrier and the placental barrier will filter out these things, but the reality is that the reason it's the fastest growing population is brain cancers and pediatric cancers is because that's the fastest growing part of an infant or an embryo, right? The brain and the spinal cord has to develop first to tell the heart to become a heart, and then the nerves piggyback on all the blood vessels that it's telling the body to create to supply nerve supply and blood supply to every organ and tissue of the developing fetus. So when that baby comes out, it's not that their head's really heavy from bone, right? They got a soft skull. It's that it's full of brain. That fastest growing part, if you liken it to something else in the body that's fast growing, would be like cancer when it's out of control, right? But naturally, our nervous system is the fastest developing part of our body because it's got to determine all of the functions to keep that baby alive when it's born. It's got to pee, it's got to poop, it's got to breathe, it's got to pump blood, it's got to do all the things that an adult does until it develops its balance and coordination and learns to become an autonomous person, right? So of course, the toxins build up there, especially the sick fats that allow toxicity to build up because the brain is approximately 90% fat. All of the myelin sheath that lines nerves to create very fluid amount of and fast electrical impulses, it's fat. So this is something all of you need to take your phones out and scan this. If you don't already have ewg.org on your phone, scan these QR codes because it will allow you to put these apps, and then you can go home and literally scan your deodorant, and it will tell you how cancerous it is. You can scan your whatever household cleaner, and it will tell you how cancerous, how toxic, how whatever. And then you can analyze your own product. I scanned one the other day, and it was for Beauty Counter. And because most of the products that we use in our house are from a certain a corporation that is safe and non-toxic, because we want that for our children. And so I scanned it. It didn't have it in the database. It immediately asked me, will you take pictures of the front, the back, the sides, the ingredient list, so that we can put this in our database? So that the next time I probably go to look it up, it'll be there. So the system is constantly growing, 130,000 products so far. EWG.org, if you don't want to scan the QR code or it's not working on your phone, that's what you want to look up when you get home. I want to help everyone be happy and be non-toxic. Let's stand up again, please. All right. If you have a knee problem or something like that, then you can do the punches again. But the rest of us, you're going to pretend you got a fire under your feet, and you're going to stomp that fire out as fast and as hard as you can, called foot fires. And so we're going to go 3, 2, 1, go. As fast as you can. Move your feet. Move your feet or punch your arms. You're trying to get to the 90%. Use your body. Remember, you're supposed to be out of breath. 90% output, 90% output. And rest. Have a seat. Folks, according to cancer.gov, researchers are learning that physical activity can also affect the risk of cancer. The evidence says cancers of the colon and breast are the most studied. There's also convincing research for prostate, lung, and the lining of the uterus or endometrial cancers. The most definitive epidemiological evidence comes from 51 studies conducted to date on colon and colorectal cancer that demonstrated a 70% reduction in the participants that were the most active compared to those that were the least active. 70% reduction. Why and how? For these reasons. 80% of blood sugar consumed by skeletal muscle, it sensitizes that. It improves lung capacity. Because remember, it's a deficiency. And 60% of people aren't active enough. 25% don't move at all. The fact is that it optimizes our hormones. And I want to talk about something. Remember, deficiency, toxicity, or loss of control. So take a person who's ingesting processed food that is really, really toxic. Then don't let them move. So now the 3,540 calories on average is making them have fat. They're deficient in nutrients, which makes their body tell them to be even hungrier. Then now they have extra weight that requires more blood vessels be grown through it to feed it so that oxygen can get to every cell and organ of the body, so that oxygen doesn't become deficient and that body part become cancerous. But because of the demand of an unconditioned heart, the heart can't pump the blood through there. Blood pressure rises. And then we're doing all of this in a stressful emotional environment. And the stress causes the cortisol hormone to secrete it. The hormone itself's job is to save your life in a chronic, stressful situation so you can fight or flight. What it does is it naturally raises blood pressure, mobilizes cholesterol, clotting factors, platelets, triglycerides, and interacts with insulin to make it less sensitive so that it keeps the blood sugar in your bloodstream so that if you don't win the fight, maybe you can flee and get away and your blood will clot and it will save your life. That is cortisol's job. But most of us don't fight a bear. We fight life. We fight ourselves. We fight with the people we love. We fight, and the stress continues to trickle up cortisol. And if you don't ever break the cycle, then you will constantly be mobilizing cholesterol, increasing your blood pressure. Doesn't that sound like diabetes, heart disease, obesity, right? Yeah, all these things. And so when we look at this, why am I having you do the 90% cycles? Because that cycling is like a fight. And when you exercise to the 90% or more and then drop down, your body thinks you've won. And it breaks the cortisol cycle. It says, hey, you fought and won. Oh, you fought and won. Oh, you fought and won. And when you go through this, the best site that I know of has the least amount of equipment needed. You could do it in your home. It's $20 for a lifetime admission to this website that gives you 50 plus workouts. It's called Max T3. Anna has the coupons to them and you can buy them. It's like $20. And you have a lifetime access to the world's, this guy trains Team USA wrestlers. He trains these guys and he's their chiropractor. Some of the fittest people on the planet are working out on these videos. And this system teaches your body how to utilize and break this cortisol cycle so that we can start to de-stress, we can improve our sleep, and then we need to connect our brain to our bodies because 77% of people report that stress affects their lives. And I think the other 23% either lied or they live on an island I don't know about. One of the two, because stress I really think affects all of us. Let's be honest. And so the top three culprits are those things that we do to ourselves. We all know what Hamas is right now, and we're all caught up in the news. And most of us hadn't heard of that and the problems in Israel as much. And we just, come on, folks. What's happening with Russia right now? It's not even in the news, but we still have that war going on, right? We go from one episodic, stressful situation, and when we're not doing that, we're comparing somebody else's highlight reel to our real life. Like, you don't post the juicy bad details, do you? Neither do they. So why should you stress out that your life ain't as grand as their highlight reel? It's not real. It's social media. The work and occupational stress, you know what? Change yourself, change the world. Improve thyself, improve the world. Focus on what you can control and change it. And I guarantee your environment will change. And if it doesn't, it will open opportunities for you to go where it can. And I did not tell anyone to get a divorce. Don't you, don't y'all go there. I know some of you were thinking, right? No, I didn't say it. So now the stress and the cancer risk, right? We know it's real. And so the fact is again, it's exercise is the key. And the fact is that toxicity is one of our worst enemies, right? Well, the fourth, depending on how you read, third or fourth leading detoxifier of the human body is the skin. So if you're putting toxic crap on it, it's absorbing in really well. And then if you don't sweat profusely every day, you leave a toxic burden on your body that now your kidneys, your liver, and your spleen have to deal with. So folks, it's just not an option. If you want to, well, it is. Just don't be healthy. Expect to get cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and then be okay with it. But if you don't want those things, accept the fact that we must embrace exercise for all of those things. We don't sleep enough. The toll of sleep for most people is the binging on stress, the blue light that we receive from our television, or the tell-you-a-vision of your phone, learning your habits and trying to market to you effectively, right? We've all really, right? You've talked about something, and then all of a sudden, like an advertisement pops up on your phone the next time you open it. Scary. And so the reality is, though, that we must fast from those things, and at least 2 hours before bed, if you want your melatonin concentrations to be proper, you can get blue light glasses. There are blue light filters on most of our screens nowadays. And then how about just pick up a real book? Then the next thing you need to do is not lay on your back with 4 pillows, crushing your cervical curve, sending constant stress back to your brain that says, I'm hurting. And that keeps you from it. So read a real book in a good position. Because, folks, we must then we need to focus on peace management instead of stress management. We want to produce peace through prayer, through social interaction with people of like mind. We want the TM, Transcendental Meditation, has the best brain mapping studies for synchronization of the brain. TM.org. Do the research for yourself. If we decide as a group in this office that we want someone to come from Nashville to teach a course on TM, y'all just let me know at your appointments. And I'll create a list and we'll have that teacher come. It's something that myself and my family have implemented in our lives. I wouldn't be a doctor today. I couldn't pass standardized tests had I not implemented that in high school. They wouldn't have let me in college. So then when in doubt, serve others. There is an unbelievable connection to humanity when you can dive to spending some time in someone else's reality that is suffering and needs something, and you can provide that need. And not only do you see that your things maybe aren't as bad, but then you've actually done something positive in the world. The biochemical reactions that happen are astronomical. And I could spend the whole night talking about it. But the most underutilized, single deprived part of most people's healthcare regimen is the connection to the brain to the body. Less than 6% of the American population utilizes chiropractic on any level, and only around 3% actually utilize chiropractic for what it was engineered for. And the fact is, it's all chiropractic's fault. We have done the worst education job on planet Earth of any healthcare profession about what we actually do. Because the reality is that your brain and your nervous system is translating the words that you are hearing and associating them with meaning. And you are either agreeing or disagreeing, bored or excited, or whatever it is being processed in your brain and is being accepted and created. The chemicals are being created in your body. And that connection is happening through the spinal cord, which is surrounded and protected by vertebra. And if these vertebrae become misaligned, then the connection of life doesn't happen. The only thing that's absent when a person dies is their innate intelligence, their soul, right? Everything else, the blood, the immune system, everything's laying there. And the nervous system is the connection between that electrical life force and how it travels through the body to control and coordinate every part of the body. And so many people find chiropractic. We're great with back pain because we work on the spine, right? I mean, I found it that way. We have a person sitting here, Miss Emily Westbrook has allowed me to talk about her tonight because the fact is that she too found us this way. And I want to ask you, how long have you been dealing with the problems that brought you in here?
About
96.
96. Several back surgeries and
4 back surgeries, double hip replacement. At one point in time on disability, don't I recall? How much pain and suffering would you say you've been through?
quite a bit. And it was, I thought I was having an issue with my hip because my leg kept giving out. And my daughter told me, she said, you need to go see Dr. Chad. And I was very skeptical because of the back surgeries and the hips. Is something going to pop out?
Kind of warranted.
But let me tell you, it was the best decision I've ever made.
This is where we started. That's her pelvis on the left when we met. Those are the disc replacements, laminectomies. They cut through things, roto-rooted, did all these things, a double hip replacement, all to avoid the back pain that you were dealing with that caused the problems that you were dealing with, that in less than a month are gone here. Folks, this is what happened to her upper body. The scoliosis continued through her mid-back. That's her before and that's her after now in a month. How many people are out there sick and suffering and dying that think that they got to have back pain, maybe have gone through 4 surgeries, had double hip replacements, still no better, and then they need convincing to come in. But what I want to take a step further to say is that those are warning signs. Most people don't know that you have an increased double the average mortality between age 20 and 50 by having a scoliosis. The average mortality rate's around 8.5% between age 20 and 50, and it jumps to 17% just from having a scoliosis. And the reality is the warning signs, the symptoms that people are experiencing, oftentimes are signals that the body's not working right? The symptoms are the warning sign that isn't being associated with a neurological issue caused by misalignments of the spine. And unless the spine hurts, they might wait until it's degenerated, have multiple back surgeries, and go through ungodly amounts of suffering before they decide to get checked up. How many kids are running around on Adderall and Ritalin these days and have emotional, neurological problems? Way too many. How many people have the drug jug that's down here, this thing, heart arrhythmia drugs, blood pressure drugs, all the different, somebody came in here, put gabapentin and all these other drugs in here that they're in here because the same thing happened to her. I've never once adjusted her for back pain. Every single one of you who's a patient in my office, I've never adjusted you for back pain. I've never adjusted you for headaches.
Does it start someplace else?
It does. And if the problem is in your spine, the only way to fix it is to move the spine back to its normal position. Your body can't do it with kale. And I love kale. But the fact is there is no supplement, oil, or tincture that moves bones. And unless we can restore this protective mechanism that surrounds and protects the most unbelievable part of our body, that allows our brains to connect to our body, unless we restore it back to normal, nothing else can work right. And that's chiropractic. The symptoms of back pain, headaches, all the warning signs, they're warning signs that your body's not working right. All chiropractic says is that if we restore the properly functioning nervous system, you have the best chance to heal. Then we feed you better, exercise you better, teach you that emotions count, and have you get surrounded environment like this to create an environment of healing. And then when you experience a better life, when she goes out and tells her story, people can understand that there's a place of healing here. And then we can change Dade County. We can have better statistics. Less cancer will run in people's families. And people will know that there is a reason and they can look at it. So what we do is we allow patients to become new patients in this office. Everyone can get a new patient appointment or sign up their family member. And instead of it being $140, $160, it's $60. That covers the exam, the x-rays, anything that we need to do during that new patient appointment. And the fact is that you have to decide what's your next steps to get you battle ready so that you never get cancer or that you win the fight of cancer. There are certain hierarchy of things. And number one is to connect the brain to the body so everything else that you do will work better. If you're not a patient, you need to find out if you're subluxated. And then if you are, you can be a patient. I appreciate it. And see, these are the kind of things that happen when people get their lives back. And that's what we want. It's not the chiropractor who heals you. Your body heals you. No one's helping you get your body free of the toxins, the interference, and allowing your bodies to heal, except for the chiropractors, unfortunately. We need more. And so then if you are a patient, start taking your home care, more importantly. Do the therapies we've taught you to restore your body back to its normal configuration. Then, once we've done those things, the next step is to identify your monsters. What are the things that you really don't want to deal with? What's hiding under the bed? And then bring it out into the open and say, if it's your nutrition and you're diabetic and you're not dealing with your diabetes, then deal with your diabetes. If you're lazy and you don't exercise and you know that's your worst thing, start exercising. Whatever it is, create your battle-ready scenario. Get involved in this office or offices other like it around the country. We got 195. And help empower people to get the support that they need. Go home, scan your products. If you're a product person and you love your stuff, then scan it and find out how toxic it is. Right? I mean, you might be causing your own cancer just by that whatever stuff, that bad deodorant, antiperspirant, right? We got to know what we're cleaning our house that our babies crawl in and everything else. These are the things that we need to do. How can I support you better? Well, Shop with the Doc is going to go on. It's a free thing where we meet at Ingalls, 6:30 actually it's 11/6. And that day, it's not a Tuesday. I think it's a Wednesday. What? It's a Monday, not a Tuesday. I wrote it wrong. So it's a Monday, 11/6. And we're going to meet in Ingalls and go through and do a shopping where I teach you the code words that they use to hide the things that are toxic to us. And then you have to make these decisions and decide. Signups are coming around while I give away some, may I have the raffle thing? So we're going to give away some free stuff to have a little bit of fun, wake some people up. Realize that the next things that you need to decide, what's the bundle that you need? Do you need the daily essentials and the antioxidants? On your way to check out, decide those things. You'll be able to turn in your new patient forms. You can circle the date and the time that you want those new patient experiences to go on. Can I have that? Sweet. All right. Oh, super cool. All right, so I'm going to give away a cruise ship or nursing home book to Stephanie Smith. Nice. There you go. All right. So who else wins something? Let's talk about vitamin D, maybe. All right, Carrie. Sweet. Oh, awesome, right? That is fantastic.
Okay, thanks.
Drop it in. All right. Oh, sweet. Vanessa Brandon has won the Align Your Health book. I won't throw it. It's actually thick. If I hit him in the head, it'll be just terrible. But this is yours on the way out. No. And then we're going to give away the Cliff Notes version of the Quick Start Guides to Max Living Nutrition, the nutrition recipe book, and the mini books. Who else? It just says Carla.
Okay.
All right, right on. These will be waiting for you on the way out. And then last but not least, it's a pop socket. In case
Put on the back of your phone.
put on the back of your phone.
To read in bed, hold it straight up. while
Yeah,
you're using your
or
phone.
have better to Miss Colleen Miller.
Already got one.
Right on. Okay. She's already got one. Well, here, we'll just choose another person. She's already got one to Ariel. There you go. This one I can throw. Oh, sorry, Anita. Look, folks, I'm going to stand up here and stand on this side for personal questions.
Can you put the QR code?
Yes, I will put the QR codes back up. Who else, before we end, has a question that they think they'd like to voice out in the group? Any questions, comments, dissertations, hallucinations?
Yeah, we already got.
I don't know if you can eventually go over the topic of like a heavy metal detox.
Absolutely. Okay, yeah, absolutely. And we'll have a toxicity workshop coming up. And then we use a product called Metal Bind. And that's where we get that from Designs for Health, and we implement that. And then I have an MD who, my mom did all these things. She was on the advanced plan. And then she went for IVs of high dose vitamin C at my medical doctor, Dr. Charles Adams, who does these. And he then would be the person who would do the urinalysis for the heavy metals. And then he can use a chelation therapy, but basically the chelation therapy is Metal Bind from a pill form. But for adults, he uses IVs, and he goes through and does the chelation that way. Other questions?
Chad, I want to mention what you did for me a week ago today. I was in the emergency room thinking I was dying and praying I would because I hurt so bad. And they ran a CT scan and blood work, and they said there's nothing wrong with you, which I thought was kind of amazing since I was in great pain. And my wife came in, and I told Anna, and she said, I Chad look at you, and I'm like, come on, give me a break. It's can't fix it. He said I had 2 ribs out of socket.
Out of place.
Popped them in. I'm here tonight.
Thanks, man. Sometimes the heart attack is a rib out, and like you kind of got to know, right? And people, those things happen. And you know what? I'm just thankful to get to do it. I appreciate it.
I'd just like to say, or ask people here, have you ever gone to an MD's office and look around the waiting room and seen happy, cheerful people? No. Come here sometime.
It is. And the groups that form here and the relationships that happen are, Monday meetings and going off to lunches and all kinds of really cool things. And the reality is that's what your health care is supposed to be. When you're at the doctor, you're already sick. What brings people here is often sickness. What they leave here with is health. And what we want to do is embody that, change the thing. We have to change the world through the law of supply and demand. And when people demand health instead of disease treatment, then we will change it just like we changed all the things in society that have been the worst in humanity, right? The bigotry, the sexism, the things that are just plagued and ruined our society. We can change our healthcare that's just as toxic. And that's what I want to empower people with. And that's what we want to provide.
Usually when I get my adjustment, I leave here and go straight to work. And when I get up there and I'm walking through the hallways at Covenant, my boss is like, because I'm going 90 to nothing. He said, man, you're on a mission, aren't you? I said, I feel good.
Thanks.
And there's a guy that's having a sciatic nerve issue. He thinks it is. And I keep telling him, you need to see a chiropractor. Well, he told my boss the other day, he said, you do good advertising. So he wants a business card.
Okay, I'll give you one. I greatly appreciate it. We'll see if we can save and change another life. And it's just like that, and people sharing and people talking about things out here in this community that takes this and makes it real for people, because people don't know what they don't know. And the person with the anemia, they know there are no nerves to the amines, right? There are no, if person has headaches, they don't know it might be coming from their spine. If they have liver problems, right? One of the people who's in this office they've reversed their diabetes, they've reversed their heart disease, they've gone from stage 4 liver failure now to stage 2 liver failure. These are the stories that people need to know about. And I never treated their liver failure the same way we never treated her back pain. Removing the interference to the expression of life so that our bodies can do their job. God bless, and y'all have a great night. Thanks.